all of us from the beginning of our businesses have just led with sharing our knowledge and being very inclusive to really anyone that wants to come to the table.
7 episodes into the Contractor Coalition Summit. Yeah. We're in Omaha. What has changed for you as one of the hosts?
Oh my gosh.
As you look back 3 years ago to where you're at today, there's so many things to talk about, but what are some things that stood out to you and the rest as how this has matured and sort of taken a life on of its own?
Yeah. Well, it's crazy to think just 3 years ago, for one, because I'm like, it feels like we've been best friends our entire life. And then, just the whole community and group, it's like we've created something so much deeper, just getting to know one another and our people and that are active in our life, right? And so I'm like, it feels so much further than that. But it's interesting too, because I'm like, just personally and professionally on both ends, like how much we've changed and developed and learned from other people. So I feel like when we first started out with this mission, it was all about giving back, when I feel like we've received so much more. So I don't know, it feels like we started yesterday, but also 100 years ago. It's hard funny. To sum it up in words.
I've had a number of people, a number of alumni that I've interviewed here in Omaha, and one of the things that they've all said is just how much more confident they are in their business. Yeah. And also, obviously, it's like they knew they were going to go places, but now they're getting there so much faster. And as we interact with other builders from around the country, as the guests interact with the hosts, it's these meaningful connections. But how has your personal business changed? Yeah. One thing is when you're a teacher, you really have to get clear on your messaging. Yeah. I mean, having the accountability that like I've seen all the work that you and Brad and Tyler and Nick do to prepare for the coaching and the teaching. Yeah. It really probably makes you hone in on your own messaging. How has that helped your own business?
Well, I was thinking yesterday, actually, you asked a question during the presentation of like, when do we take time to get creative or think or learn or dive into these tools? And it was probably a year ago that I started taking my Mondays to just turn everything off, and I call them my creative days, and I block off my entire schedule, and my team knows that, and my friends know that, and people around me, just so that I can, I shared on Instagram. I remember you calling me one day and I didn't even tell you, and you're like, oh, this is your day, like, because I would say too, like at home and get things done, but truly it's like, it's just my day, but I'm always working, right? And so that's my day to just like think and do things. And I used to do that like on a Sunday, but my kids were home. And so I think even that small shift, but knowing how important it is, because I need to show up at these events 2 times a year, be a thought leader, forward thinker. I always want to have updated, new, relevant content that we're sharing in these presentations. So I think just having that time, but knowing that I have to show up. So I take that day like very seriously, and nothing interferes with that day. Like no matter what, I don't let anything besides the Contractor Coalition, which is tomorrow on a Monday. But otherwise, I'm like, I don't let anything come in the way of that day, so that I take that time so that when our Contractor Coalition Summit show up 2 times a year, that I do have the knowledge and that I have tested the tools and that I do know what I'm talking about. But even going back to that question too of like changing and developing, I was just talking to someone at dinner last night about my first, and to think only 3 years ago, but I remember first time getting up and speaking. And I'm like, yesterday, nothing. Like, I got up there, I felt really good about everything. And my grandpa would always tell me, and I recite it in my head all the times, but it's like, when you talk about something you truly know, it'll be easy. Like, the nerves will go away, all that. But when, like, you don't truly know it, that's what, gets in the way of how you public speak. But I just thought about, like, our first one 3 years ago. And I got up, and I remember looking at Brad, and I'll never forget it. And I just looked at him, and he looked at me like, what? And I'm like, I was about to have a freaking panic attack, because I had so much like imposter syndrome and just, not confidence and just not mentally healthy, not physically healthy, like all these things. And so, I was just like, wow, from that to today and how much that's, and it just like hit me yesterday when I was like, wow, like that feeling is gone, right? And I think it's also just being with all these guys and ladies and whatever that are just better humans. Like even one of our gifts that we gave was protein shaker bottles. And I thought of that last week because I was like, what can I give that's like people will use and whatever? And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, and then I thought all these people are like healthy and want to be better and do better. So I was like, this is perfect, you know? And I'm like, what group of people would you think about giving that to, you know? Where, yeah.
There's two quotes that come to mind when I think of you. And the first time that I came in Nashville, it was collaboration over competition. And really the whole spirit of the Contractor Coalition is really centered around that. Yeah. Today it seems normal that you just share everything. But when you guys first did it, that was not normal. Yeah. And even in the broader scope of the construction world, it's not normal, but for sure in the community of the Contractor Coalition alumni, like it's very normal. We, having been a past one and now a host, it's like we interact with all these builders around the country. We share best practices, we help each other. It's a community. Yeah. When it was first starting, what was it that the whole group really understood that this is gonna work only if we share 100%? Yeah,
well, I think for Jamie and I at Construction Style, like that's how our whole business model has been. When we started it in 2012, it was about sharing everything. We were sharing how much the first renovation we did cost. We were sharing how much a bathroom remodel cost, how much selections, we were sharing what selections we were putting in. And even that, I'll never forget, like a lot of people sending me messages and being like, you can't share that. And not going why, but saying you can't. And I remember just thinking like, why? Why not? I'm like, the people that want this information aren't gonna be my client. And I always knew that from the beginning, where I was like, and then it, just like you, and this is why I think we click from the beginning, I was like, we're just always so curious. And I was like, I don't understand, and the more I dove into that, I was like, there's nothing wrong with sharing any of this. Like, it's only gonna gain, and that's how I figured out ad revenue and affiliate marketing and brand sponsorships and all this other stuff that it led to. And then just having that mindset, it led to, I say your vibe attracts your tribe. And so I'm like, that's how I got to know Brad really well, through Instagram. That's how I got to know Nick and Tyler, and all of that was through social media, and then showing up at the Builder Show and getting to know one another in person. And so I think with them too, and it's like their YouTube and walking people through their projects, and Tyler walking people through the craftsmanship and how he's doing things, and Nick higher level just walking through projects from beginning to end, and Brad too. It's like he, again, going back to the beginning years ago, it's like we go to the Builder Show, and it's like he would just be texting everyone and being inclusive and inviting everyone and being like, meet here. And I was just like, wow, this is amazing, and anytime people would be like, oh, what's going on tonight? I'm like text Brad, or like he just planned this, and everything was just so impromptu, but like there was no one that wasn't welcome. There was no one that wasn't, no judgment, no egos, and I started to just like see this group that all of us were attracting. And so when, I was hosting conferences in Minneapolis for the community as a whole, not just the housing community. And then Brad came to that and saw, what we were doing. And he also had been talking to Nick about something, doing something with contractors, and then they're like, let's do this for contractors. And so I think all of us from the beginning of our businesses have just led with sharing our knowledge and being very inclusive to really anyone that wants to come to the table.
It's funny you beat me to the punch, because I was going to ask you about, the second quote, which is your vibe attracts your tribe. Okay. And I think an observation now, having you probably 300 plus alumni at this point?
Yeah.
So it's interesting to me, the ones that I've interacted with, which is probably, call it 80% of them, there doesn't seem to be a lot of ego involved. And I think, it's interesting, the people that are coming here have an open mindset. Yeah. They're coming to learn. They're coming in a place of like, I can gain something and I'm going to share. Yeah. And so you have this commonality of thought process. And so the chemistry, in my opinion, is off the charts. Yeah. I mean, it's rare that you'd have 100% of the people that you're like, I like them.
I know.
And not that I go around like judging I like them or don't like them, but it's just it's so apparent that every single person has such a hunger for getting better. Right. And I think that's, regardless of where you're at in your continuum of a business, we've had small remodelers, we've had, one person, one man bands, if you will. Yeah. We've had production builders, we have luxury. I mean, you have this huge gambit. Yeah. But it makes sense because the host range is so different. Like each host is so different than the other one, right? I mean, there's a little bit, like if you had a Venn diagram, everyone has a little bit of everybody, but everyone's personality is so different, and everyone runs their businesses so different.
Right. And we all offer different services, right? Like different styles in a way, and
in different perspectives. Like I've heard some people say, well, I always like to ask, like, how did you hear about the Contractor Coalition? For two reasons. One, I want to know what marketing are we doing that's working, and two, what is that first thread that is pulled on? And a lot of them are modern craftsmen, and then a number of them are like, oh, we follow Brad, or and especially women, they're like, I came here because I want to know more from Morgan's point of view as a woman entrepreneur. How do I apply this to my business? Right. And as we've had the Curious Builder podcast, as our influence is going with the Curious Builder collectives, I have several people that come now because of that. And so I just think it's so unique that everyone has a common person to elevate each other, but everyone has a slightly different style in how they're doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
When you were putting this together, I'm guessing, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing you weren't that clairvoyant that you thought about that. You just simply said, hey, these are people I really like. At what point did it dawn on you, like, this was really working because everyone works together really well, but we're all sort of different from each other? Has that hit you?
And again, I'm like, this is how I've led all my businesses and brands and like my life, I guess, but it's just trying something. Again, you asked a question at Build Buzz podcast that we did the first night, but just like, thinking about the future and safeguarding and all that kind of stuff, and when do you lean into a trend and when do you don't. And I'm like, I always say like a gut check person, and I'm like, I want to try things, and immediately if it doesn't feel right, I pivot. Even just like within this event, right, we're like, okay, this vibe isn't right, let's pivot, let's do something different, and we just like move fast. And so from the beginning, of course, because I knew, going into this with Brad too, I'm like, he's amazing, it's going to be great, Nick's amazing. But I was just like, yes, like I'm a yes person. And there was a point I was like, okay, now I'm a no person. And I always say everything in my life is a season, and a season might be a week, might be a month, might be a few years, might be a day. So I'm always like, it's a new season. That's become like a joke on our team. When I try something, I'm like, okay, now it's not working, new season.
You remind me, Brad Robinson, who's here at the Collective in Omaha, and I've known him for a while now. I interviewed him on the podcast. He had a really interesting take on it. He said, I'm fine with failing, but I want my team to fail fast.
Yes.
And when you said that,
fail fast and fail forward.
Yeah.
Right?
And so he's like, I'd rather know really quick if it's going to fail.
Yeah.
The problem is if you have a long fail, you take so much of your bandwidth and so much of your time.
Yeah.
You were talking a lot. I think one of the things that really struck home at this coalition that AI has, just 3 years, there's been so much more in terms of advancements and, implementation. And, you and Nick, I think, from my observation, probably utilize the powers of AI better than the rest of us. Yeah. And, you're so quick to try, see if it works, and then either, adopt it or ditch it.
Right.
And I think you do a really good job of saying, I'm open to this, but if it doesn't fit me, then I'm done with it.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Where, as you look for the future of the Contractor Coalition, what is some of your vision for where you see this going, and some aspirations that you might have?
Well, I see a lot of things, much like you, so I'm very excited for you to be a part of it too, because like anything, running brands and companies, there's a lot of ideas, there's a lot of work, none of this comes easy. But I always see a lot of opportunity too. And going back to one of your previous questions, I'm like, failing is not an option for me. I think I was just raised in a very entrepreneurial family where it's like, you are gonna make it work, right? Even when I took the leap to quit my full-time job and my husband and I had to do this together, I was like, people are like, weren't you nervous about this or that? I was like, no, because that's not an option, And so just with Contractor Coalition, I mean, there's been moments where we're like, is this worth it? Because again, it's a lot of work. And since the beginning, honestly, like after that first one, I have seen and I continue to see like where this is going and the impact that we have on the community together as a whole with the people that come to this. And so I have a pretty big vision for it, and I think you do too, and as well as the other guys. And I'm like, I can share too, but I'm like, we're about to launch a new website. I wanted it done by this weekend. I failed the mark on that, but it's almost there, and that's okay. And that it wasn't done this weekend, but with the new website launch, we have plans to do things within the people, the community that are showing up to this to be, what's the word, like
inclusive or more active or engaged.
Yes, and have a portfolio and a presence online on our website within the community. Obviously within my presentations, I talk a lot about SEO and backlinks and all this stuff. And so one of my visions with that too is like to elevate them and their brand, right? Like just by coming to this. And that's way deeper that we could get into, but with, you know, the backlinks and the storytelling through Contractor Coalition to tell their stories. And then my hope is to give them additional opportunities through Contractor Coalition by coming and implementing what they're doing here within something bigger there. So without going into too much detail.
Yeah, well, I think that's exciting.
Yeah.
Well, appreciate your leadership and your friendship, and another successful wrap in Omaha for Contractor Coalition number 7. If you're interested in attending the Contractor Coalition in the future, please head to contractorcoalitionsummit.com or follow us on Instagram to find out more.